wonder if they did. So when I went into the wage and personnel meeting, I told Melissa, I said, don't lock the front door. And then they got done, and they all laughed. I was headed towards out there, and I see Kern outside going, like, whoops.
Yeah, it's supposed to be FY 25 request, it says FY 24 request.
Uh-oh, who did that?
Well, this, we can't have this.
I know, sloppy work out of that finance director. Which one is it?
Page 7, I was looking for the fiscal year 2025 request.
Stop,
Well,
stop,
you know.
stop jumping ahead.
It's in the right column, it's just wrong.
You can update that one.
Who proofs that?
Some people are more persnickety than others.
All I had to do was turn the microphone on.
You're saying that.
I'll drag my feet where Robin walks.
Persnickety? Persnickety.
You know, once you do it like 22 pages, they all start.
Don't say anything bad about the administrator because the microphones are on.
All right, we all set?
Yeah.
All right, well, welcome everyone to our annual budget hearing. Tonight is night 1, and it looks like we're going to be getting through sort of the core departments this evening, and then taking a break for Wednesday, and then back at it Thursday to hear from our various committees and commissions, and round out with the other odds and ends. This is an opportunity for the board to ask questions of the presenters, in this case mostly David. And we also have the budget committee here, members of the budget committee here, welcome. Don't worry if this is your first go around. If you have questions, feel free to shoot a hand up, and it's really, this is an opportunity for all of us to become as educated as we can as we move into this somewhat lengthy process of trying to decide how to present a budget to the voters and do it with a straight face and say, yes, this is what we recommend. So I guess without any further ado, we'll turn it over to David.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Maybe just because I know we have a few new faces in here, maybe we ought to shoot ourselves around the room and just say who we are and why we're, not necessarily why we're here, we're all here for the same purpose, but who we are. I'm Dave Kinney, I'm the town administrator, for anybody that doesn't know me.
Kayla Lacombe, finance director.
Steve Hand, select board member. Karen Lee, vice chair of the select board.
Lately Dunn, chair.
Mike Ryan, select board.
Robin Tarantino, select board.
I'm Joan Holmes, and I'm new, just really excited to learn what's going on. How about where I can?
Lee Stoutenberg, budget committee. Sam Stovak, budget committee.
Patria Allen, budget committee.
Wow, we made it all the way around the room, and this isn't an us and them.
No.
Hopefully we'll get some more people on Thursday to fill in some additional seats. Just so you all know, everybody has a copy of the budget as it currently exists. It's always a good place to start, to make sure we have all starting on the same page. Inside the front pocket is the schedule of approximate times and who's coming to talk, hopefully who's coming to talk, and what we're going to cover both tonight and Thursday. The primary purpose of these two meetings is just to hear all of everybody's requests, ask questions. Certainly, if you have questions about something that you just don't understand or want more information on, won't guarantee that we have the answer off the cuff, but we'll get you one over time. Ultimately, once the two nights have concluded and we've heard all the requests, or you folks have heard all the requests, the select board will then begin its deliberations on budget items at subsequent meetings. Probably the first one they'll do will be part of their meeting on the 26th, but they haven't really set that schedule. The ultimate goal for the select board is to approve their recommendations regarding the budget, probably in their first meeting in March, which I believe is the 11th. And then the budget will then, and we'll talk a little bit about this, the format, the select board's recommendations will be incorporated within the budget, and those will be forwarded on to the budget committee. We'll have similar meetings. Some or all or none of the selectmen may be present at those. You'll hear me talk over and over and over again at those meetings. But we'll certainly highlight things that have changed from what you hear tonight and Thursday, and everything will be fair game for more questions from budget committee members. At the latter part of April, we'll need budget committee recommendations for what you think is reasonable to operate these programs. That will be dictated by whatever process you folks want to use, and ultimately you may have to, vote those in. Those recommendations will be included on the town meeting warrant, which is what warns people that we're going to have a town meeting, we're going to decide things. It'll have a select board, it'll have what's requested, it'll have a select board recommendation, and it'll have a budget committee recommendation if it regards money. And then depending on whether or not the select board decides whether we'll be voting via referendum ballot or at an open town meeting, those will be either June 11th or June 13th. Last year, and maybe the year before, we went back to the traditional open town meeting where anybody and everybody that's a registered voter gets to show up and have discussion, debate right there on the floor, and people raise a hand at the end, and we make a decision, and we move on to the next. During the pandemic, we voted via referendum ballot, where people got a ballot that says you want to approve, X number of dollars to run the town operations. So you have the schedule, you have the budget. The budget does, or the town charter does require that the budget include a budget message. It's not very specific as to what that message is supposed to be, so I've, right inside your cover sheet, there's a few highlights of what I'd like to talk about before we delve into the budget. First thing is, by the time Thursday night's done, you will have heard me talk way too much. So if there's something I say that doesn't make sense, or there's something you want to have more clarification, feel free to interrupt and ask your question. We're certainly, Kayla and I are very familiar with the budget and what goes on. We know that everyone here is familiar, but somewhat less familiar. And it is what the town wants to do, and we want to make sure that people have the information they need in order to make an informed decision about what we're going to spend and what we're going to do. So that said, this is fiscal year 2025, first draft of the budget. The initial requests for funding are up 5.6%, or 165,000. Ooh, that's a big number, and a typo in there. Who proofed that? Oh, that was me. 165,000 and some change above what was approved by the voters for our current year's budget. And to back up just a little bit for some of the budget committee members that don't know, the town operates on a fiscal year which starts July 1 and goes through June 30 of the following year. So this budget, when it's approved in June, will start July 1st of 2024 and end in on June 30th of 2025. Non-property tax revenues, of which we have a fair amount, and we'll talk about those tomorrow night, are currently projected to decrease somewhat from last year, or 0.8%. a little over $14,000. The primary driver in the decrease in revenues is we no longer have American Rescue Plan Act monies available to us. Those have been appropriated by the voters and spent, or in the process of being spent. All of the budget is important, but there's a couple items that I think are particularly noteworthy, and we'll certainly talk about these more in depth as we go through the budget. There's been a change in state law. There's now a paid family and medical leave that requires employers to requires employers to pay 1/2 of 1% of wages to the state for this paid family and medical leave act. That will start or be effective as of January 1st of 2025. So as we go through the budget, you're going to see a number of lines that say paid family medical leave act, new state law, 0.5% of income with an effective date of January 2025. So that's new and different. The budget contains a request to fund our public facilities director position for an additional day a week. Last year, when the budget was approved, it was approved for a full-time position. We had an individual that served in it in a full-time capacity. He left our employment. We hired a person who now works for us 3 days a week. So there's some changes in terms of budgetary impacts. There's a reduction of like some of the benefits that we don't pay to part-time employees. But there is a request for that. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to convince the public facilities director, who will be here hopefully later this evening, to work for us 4 days a week, but I'd like to budget for it because I'm hopeful that it'll occur. And if it does, I'd like to be able to have the board act on that and not be like, well, we'd like to have you, but we don't have any money. And so it's included in the budget. The fire chief, who will be here later this evening, is proposing some substantial changes to the compensation offered to our firefighters. I don't want to jump the gun on that, but in essence, they're paid now per call. They get minimum wage, or what are we paying them? $15 an hour for a call. If the call goes 15 minutes, they get $15. If the call goes 15 hours, they get $15. He'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to firefighter or fire department tonight. The select board has asked the Wage and Personnel Policy Board, which is made up of citizen volunteers, to review the pay structure and make recommendations. I believe the intention of that is, once they get the recommendations from Wage and Personnel, to add that into their considerations and deliberations for when it comes back to them making a recommendation to move forward. The town's share of our regional emergency medical services, or an ambulance, we're in a bit of flux at the moment. Our 4-town collaborative appears that it may be headed towards 3-town collaborative, or 3.5. So we've included a substantial increase in the monies that we appropriate for that, or request for that. Was going to go up substantially to begin with. Our service used to provide a lot of interfacility transfers from the hospital to other hospitals. The bulk of that has been taken away or no longer occurs. So that used to subsidize our E911 service, our emergency services, and no longer available to us. So we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to EMS, which is, welcome, Heidi.
I can get a seat.
You get a seat at the big table, but you're gonna have to listen to me for a minute or 2 or 10. So that's coming. That's a big driver of the change in our overall request for monies. The budget does include a 3.2% adjustment to wages for all positions except for firefighters, the fire chief, and the town administrator. The select board was nice enough to do a performance evaluation of the town administrator and generous enough to offer me a contract extension last night, and they signed it, I signed it, and we're moving on. Our interlocal agreement for the Midco Solid Waste Corporation, or our solid waste handling facility, which takes trash, recyclables, and runs a CD&D landfill, commercial demolition debris, whatever landfill. They're supposed to have the budget to us by the end of the calendar year, and I don't have it yet. The number carried in there is the same as last year. I think that was the goal of the board, but haven't seen the budget, so that's what's in there. The select board has worked with the school committee regarding maintenance of the ball fields out behind the school, which are really town, and not that the school isn't part of the town, but I'm going to refer to the town being municipal budget. School will do their own budget meetings with you folks. The fields are the maintenance, some of the maintenance activities are coming back to the responsibility of the town to primarily for grass maintenance. That's a change that's going to require some additional funding. We have a request that the comprehensive plan committee's made for to engage a consultant. The provider agencies, which the budget committee gets the first crack at, those requests are up 42.1% from last year, from what was approved last year. I don't know how that all pans out in the end, but it'll start off with you folks and then go back to the select board. And our debt service, on the good news side, because I've given you all the where we spent money, on the good news side, our debt service for the road bond is paid off. Hooray. I was here when we borrowed the money 15 years ago, and I can't believe I've made it this long and it's paid off. So you will see tomorrow night that we've dropped that request from, obviously, from the budget. No sense in budgeting for things we don't have. Unlike previous years, our revenues or budget offsets that we don't need to property tax isn't quite the work in progress it's been in past years. In past years, a lot of the state monies were in a little bit of flux. In other words, the legislature hadn't really decided what they were going to do and give to the towns. And unless there's some unanticipated legislative action, the revenue sharing and local road assistance should be relatively known to us. And so are the other revenue items, but we'll talk a little bit more about that late tomorrow. I'm supposed to talk. One of the things the charter does say requires in the budget message is our town's current debt position. The only debt that we have that's true debt is for the school. That's paid for out of the school budget. But we have $633,418 in principal that we owe, and a big whopping $3,558.24 in interest before that's retired. And so we're $666,976.24 in the hole as of July 1, because we make a payment in May, I believe. 2 more years for the school. That will be paid for. We have something that we list under debt service that's not included here. The town made an agreement with the Lincolnville Sewer District to help them make a donation to those folks to help them with their debt service a couple of years ago. Leading question.
Yeah, the two don't add up to the 666, is that?
Oh, that's because somebody didn't proof this well. That would be me.
Is it 633 plus 30?
Yeah, it's probably 636, but
Right, that's what
you
I'm
know,
wondering.
once again.
Just checking.
Huh.
$33,000 in interest.
No, actually, it's not, because we refunded that, or it's not refinanced, but in essence, refinanced that loan, and they give you credits towards last year's, and I was shocked when it came down to $3,000 we had left, or $600,000 borrowed, but anyhow. I probably typed 33 when I added it together. Charter also requires that we give you an estimate of the increase in our assessed valuation for the coming year. That's really a little bit of a crapshoot when the assessor hasn't begun his work on valuation, but we came up with a $3 million estimate nonetheless. And just for everybody's knowledge, the commitment that will be done, not this August, but in August of 2025, where we've already contracted to have a revaluation of the community done. And we'll be looking to implement that in August of 2025. And that concludes the big budget message. Moving into the budget itself, pages turn the other way. You've got a table of contents, which I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with what a table of contents is. Won't explain that. The next page is just a summary of this year compared to past years. I won't explain that. On page 3, it just has the budget format and an explanation. All of our budgets are set up in the same, or all of our pages are set up in the same way. So we have at the top left-hand corner what the category is. In this case, the example used was Public Works Transfer Station. The account, oftentimes we have more than one account listed where it says Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation. That one, we only make payments to one entity. What we actually spent in fiscal year 23 is in the next column as we move from left to right. What was budgeted in FY24, which is the year we're currently in. What we expended through the half year or through December 31st. The percent expended through the 31st. The request for the upcoming year. The percent change for the upcoming year, so you can compare this year to last year. And then ultimately, when you get into the next pages, the select board recommended column, that will be empty for what we'll do for the next couple of nights. Select board change, percentage change will be empty because the select board hasn't made any recommendations. Those will ultimately be filled in middle of March-ish before it comes back to the budget committee. And then the budget committee's recommendations, when you make those, will be added to the budget and the budget committee rec. And then the percent change, and then finally the last column is town meeting approved. So come middle of June, we'll know what town meetings approved for monies for all of these things. And I went really quick through that, but it's pretty straightforward, I think. Everybody's still on the same page with me? One of the other key things before I turn the page, you'll note on the lower left-hand corner in the footer, it tells you the draft date, which this one is February 12th. When it goes to certainly by the time it gets to the budget committee, but oftentimes through the select board deliberations, they'll make some changes one night. They want to know what the impacts are. We'll update the draft date. One of the first things we do when we have these meetings is usually make sure everybody has the same draft. Because otherwise you may, if we're not looking at the same stuff, it's hard to make comparisons. So we're all working on February 12th because that's the only one that exists. Next page is page 4, which begins our budget reviews. And boy, I'm really right on time. I will talk quick. It's okay. This is administration and finance. This is on page 4 and an explanation on 5. Up above, in the top half on the left-hand column is our various accounts that we break down administration and finance to, and we just talked about all those columns. And what I will do is give you a brief explanation. Administration and finance is primarily everybody that works here in the town office. It doesn't have a quote-unquote department of themselves. It's the ladies in the front office, Kayla, myself, and the public facilities director. So a big portion of this is obviously wages, because this is where the majority of our employees are employed. Wages is the very first line. Everybody still with me, sees that? That's proposed to increase 8.5% from last year to this year. Just beyond halfway down the page is a breakdown of the various wages for the various positions that are included within administration and finance. FY '24 is is the compensation currently offered, or what was budgeted, stop that, and approved for FY '24, and FY '25 is what's being carried currently in the budget. I mentioned earlier in the budget message when we talked about Public Facilities Director, you'll note that is the last line under wages. The Public Facilities Director was a full-time position that was eligible for benefits, including our health insurance and other insurances and retirement and whatnot. The current position is not benefit eligible, and the current wage is less than what was budgeted in '24, but with the additional day in '25, the budget seems to drive a substantial increase in the number. So to run quickly down the rest of the page and try to work us back, certainly shout out if you have some questions. FICA and Medicare is just a percentage. If you try to do the percent, it may not add up. There's a reason behind that. One of our employees, when we talk about medical insurance, the town offers a buyout program. So if they have insurance elsewhere, the town splits 1/2 of what the town would pay for a single coverage. With that individual, town receives half the benefit and we pay out. That's a taxable benefit to that employee. So that's why if you took the wages and did the straight 7.65%, you don't come out with that number, just so you all know. There's the first paid family medical leave that we talked about, or I talked about briefly in my opening remarks. For administration and finance employees, that benefit for the half year will cost the town $1,020. Retirement through ICMA, the International County City Management Association, or something like that. The town offers a retirement program to its full-time employees. It's a match, and I think I'll speak for the employees and say they're grateful for that. Someday, everybody's goal, I think, is to get to the point where they can retire. Medical and dental insurance, the town offers full-time employees insurances, health insurance and dental insurance. That's the split on that depends on your date of hire and whether you choose single coverage or parent and child or family, and a little convoluted, but.
Finish the price has gone down.
The price has gone down because our previous public facilities director was a full-time position and was offered the insurance, and our new public facilities director is part-time and isn't eligible for that. So that's why the cost has decreased. Running quickly down this, and do chime in, advertising. We advertise public hearings and employment opportunities and dog licenses. We'll talk to Heidi in a minute. Various things we advertise. Audit, we're required by state statute to have an independent auditor audit our work. We pay him, or we pay that firm. Liens and discharges, we record liens at the Registry of Deeds for people that don't pay their taxes in a timely fashion following state statute. There's a cost associated with recording those liens, and then when those liens are paid for, we discharge those liens, and there's a cost to record the discharges. Those costs are recouped from the people that we charge for that, but it isn't always recouped in the same year we have the expenditure. Postage, we do various mailings, tax bills, tax bill reminders is required, other correspondence. Professional development is training. Town membership, the town belongs to a number of associations we have dues due, yeah. Printing is primarily tax bills and town reports and that type of thing. Publications, we subscribe to a couple of different publications. Tax maps, we have maps of for the assessor, what they use to assess taxes, available to the public. We get those updated annually for splits or changes if someone has surveys. We have a number of different computer things, computer purchases. We have 10 primary workstations. We try to replace those on about a 5-year basis, so we're looking at two per year. Hardware, excuse me, hardware purchases, software, computer support. We have outside tech support. Our software licensing, most of what we do at the front counter anyways, is run through our what's called Trio program. We have to pay a pretty good licensing fee on an annual basis for that, and some support is in that cost as well. Let's see, that's computers. Records maintenance, there are some records that we have to maintain in perpetuity. We take some of the tax records, birth, death records, marriage records, we take some of those when the book gets filled and send it off to a preservation company that binds it in certain ways so it'll last us forever. We maintain most of those down in the vault, in the basement. Copier lease, we lease a copier overage. We get so many copies for the base charge for the lease, and then if we go over that, we pay an additional fee. Supplies is the paper you're looking at, and notebooks and pens and whatever else. Travel, we reimburse employees at the current IRS rate for business use of a private vehicle. Town, beyond fire trucks, the town owns no vehicles. So if an employee does a bank run, we pay them mileage to go to the bank and back. Cellular telephone, town provides service under administration and finance for this piece of fine hardware right here, and the public facilities director. And I say this every year, half jokingly, if the budget committee is looking to save $700, feel free. And ballot tabulating machine rental. Excuse me, we're provided one ballot tabulating machine by the state of Maine for elections. When they do a ranked choice voting ballot, like we'll be doing in March on the 5th, and then again in June on the 11th, and I don't know and probably this fall in November as well. We can't piggyback our elections on the machine because apparently it doesn't have enough brain capacity. So we like to use the machine to tabulate ballots, and so we rent another machine separately, and we obviously budget for the cost of that. So that was a very quick administration and finance, how to spend $649,052 in 5 minutes or less. Anybody have any questions on that? And I know I was burning quickly.
I was just curious about the 36.4% increase in the tax maps.
It's the anticipated cost from our mapping company. I mean, I don't want to say it's an $800 increase, or estimated to be an $800 increase.
Yeah.
And
They haven't gone up for many years prior to this year.
well, you can see we did spend $2,600 in FY '23,
Yes.
and we only budgeted $2,200 this year. So
Yeah.
we'll be robbing Peter to pay Paul, but.
Okay.
And that's probably a good point to emphasize for people. This is a budget. It's not an actual. We don't know, and we'll talk about this more with some of the other things like heating fuel. If anybody in this room can tell me what a gallon of propane or oil is gonna cost in February of next year, I'd like to speak with you because we can make all sorts of money. And so this is, some of these things are very specific, like the software licensing from Trio, $19,131. I'm gonna venture a guess, anything that says down to the dollar, we know what that cost is going to be because they've told us your licensing fee for the coming year is this. Some of these others, we use our educated best guess at what some of these expenses are going to be. Monies that aren't expended go into unassigned fund balance, are available with the voter approval to spend for other things in the future year. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to revenues and budget offsets later as well, or tomorrow, or Thursday. So there, back to administration and finance. And, oh, Robin has a good question.
Well, I don't know whether it's a good
Well,
question.
it's a question, so it's good.
The town memberships,
Yep.
does that include travel to any kind of conferences or anything? Or is it just
No.
specific membership?
Yeah, town memberships are detailed on the next page at the top. We belong to Maine Municipal Association, which is a group of 400 and some odd towns in Maine that have common interests, hopefully. Mission Square, which is the folks, they just changed the name from the ICMA Retirement Corporation to Mission Square. We pay a fee to them to manage our retirement funds. Mid-Coast Council of Governments, and then the ICMA Manager, Maine Town and City Management Association. 5 of us belong to the Tax Collectors Association, and 4 of us belong to the Town Clerks Association. Whew.
And that 3,000 for MCOG is what gets us all their services that we.
It gets our foot in the door, because some services they can offer for free to members and some they charge. But if you don't belong, I don't think you get any.
So, computer support, outside IT support,
Yep.
that is solely for what's going on in the offices here. And the reason I ask that is I'm looking for a line item for IT support during meetings.
Yeah, this is when we purchased the new computers.
Okay.
He coordinates that, he comes and installs that, he makes it talk to the server, and I say, you know what we needed to do, Jim, make it work, and he does, because I always claim to be technologically challenged, and it's not a lie. Any other stuff on administration and finance? And there will be plenty of time between now and when you make your recommendations to ask some more questions. And certainly, if you think of something when you get home tonight, don't call me tonight, but call either Kayla or I here tomorrow, or the next day, or shoot us an email. We're happy to get you the information you need. With that, we're going to turn the pages to page 6. And we're going to talk about protection, animal control. Heidi Blood is our animal control officer. Keep us on schedule, not to cut Heidi off. We pay the animal control officer an annual stipend. We pay FICA and Medicare. We will pay Family Medical Leave Act, because that's going to be required of us by statute. We provide a communication reimbursement to Heidi for cell phone. We pay the animal shelter, which is Paws down in Camden, an annual, so that when Heidi finds a stray dog and we can't find the owner, Heidi can take that down to Paws and drop it off. And then when people call up saying, I'm looking for my dog, we say, call Paws. go down there and pay the fee, whatever you have to do, and get your dog back. Supplies and training, obviously, if we need some supplies, we're actually purchasing a new Have a Heart track, right?
Yes, I just got it the other day, thank you.
Yep.
Much needed.
And if we need any training for animal control, they do have to, you do have to be state certified within so many days
Correct.
of appointment.
Correct.
And
And again, annually.
and there you go. Memberships, we have money for if Heidi chooses to join the Maine Animal Control Association. And mileage, once again, we pay Heidi for documented mileage, and she travels to take care of animals running around that aren't supposed to be.
Right.
And Heidi is here, can answer any animal control questions, because I know none of that. That's why we have good people working with us.
Hopefully I do a good enough job that I don't need to call you, you explain things.
I do my best. Anybody have any animal control officer questions? I burnt through that really quick, and I'm sorry to step on your toes.
No, that's fine, dear, I appreciate it.
Okay,
I don't have any, requests or needs or anything. I've been at this for quite a few years, so I've got all the equipment I need now that we have the live traps coming in, so I'm in pretty good shape.
What's the most common call you receive?
Stray cats.
A stray cat call?
And if you're curious, Heidi does an amazing job of submitting her activities. And so if you want some interesting reading,
I'm gonna write a book one day.
you can see all of the sort of play-by-play action. It's really fantastic.
while we're talking stray cats, if a cat, this is one of my pet peeves in life, if a cat shows up at your doorstep and meows and whatever cats do, don't feed it. You feed it, you own it.
Right.
Well, you don't own it, but it's not leaving,
That's in the state statute, actually.
is it?
Yep, you feed it, you own it.
It's just not, it's not going to leave. And I know that everybody thinks they're doing the right thing, and I don't want to be mean about it, but the time to address it is when it shows up, not 4 days after you've been feeding it.
I generally tell
Sorry.
folks with stray cats to keep an eye on it, give me a call in 3 days if it's still hanging around.
Yeah.
Or if it's obviously injured and, needs some immediate care, I'll obviously come take it. But generally speaking, you don't know what stray cat is, I have 10 cats at home and they all go outside. And not one of them is a stray, but I see them at my neighbor's house all the time. Yeah, that's just what cats do. And there is no law preventing them from doing so,
And
which
do you
is
remove
problematic.
deceased animals?
I'm sorry,
Do you remove deceased animals?
I do my very best not to,
Uh-huh,
only because I have an extremely weak stomach when it comes to
uh-huh.
that. So yeah, I will if it's, a little old lady that had a cat or raccoon show up on her doorstep and died, I'll go in and do it if I have to. But then the question is, what do I get to do with it?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bring it home and put it in my dumpster.
What about an adult deer on the beach?
I would call Marine Resources.
Okay.
Or the game one.
Because they actually like to get calls like that, because it's a perfect training opportunity for them.
Okay.
They can take the carcass up to their lab and do all kinds of.
Animal control officer
Yeah.
is for domestic animals.
Uh,
And there are some exceptions when it comes to rabies for
Right.
raccoon or whatever, but if it's a wild thing, game warden.
Yeah.
And they're gonna tell you to leave it alone and let nature take its course. So save yourself the phone call.
Okay.
Call them, they love,
Good.
and if it's something that's crunched in the road, depending on which road it is, DOT might come pick it up. It's on the state highway, and the town might, if we absolutely had to, on the town road.
I have done it before, because it was, exigent circumstances. It was
Yeah.
truly a little old lady that a stray cat died in the driveway. No, I'm gonna go take care of that for her, you know. But generally speaking, alive and domestic. My only two requirements.
Thank you so much, Heidi.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Run hide before somebody has questions.
I'm out of here.
You don't have to run.
We've got the chiefs out there.
What's
Yeah,
up?
we've got a
We-
bunch of,
We've got the chiefs out there.
Yeah.
We better hope we don't have a fire, because we've got half the fire department right here in the hallway. Donnie, come in and bring some chairs for the other people, or they can go sit on the other side of the room if they want to.
There we go, all kinds of chairs.
keep them all together. More work.
So joining us is Fire Chief Fullington and a few of his helpers, who I'll let you introduce your helpers.
So this is the Deputy Chief, AJ Weed, and this is the First Assistant Chief, Jay Costa.
There we go. So we're now on page 7 of the budget. And we found a typo on this already, which is the 6th column where it says FY24 request should say FY25 request. And will in your next draft.
No, I see it there, okay.
So do you want to talk about this? Do you want me to start? I've already talked for like an hour, 45 minutes.
You're really good at talking, you're far better than me, so you can talk, you can start it out if you like.
Okay, I'll hit the high points and then the chief can answer the remainder and maybe provide some additional explanation.
Yeah.
Officer stipends and firefighter wages are just that. As we talked very briefly earlier, we pay our officers a small stipend for the services they provide. The current are listed about halfway down the page. And there's a substantial increase that I'll let the chief talk about in a minute for both the officer stipends and for the firefighter wages. And, well, maybe this is a good moment for you to explain the request.
The request, yes. It was made aware to me that we were probably the only town around here, volunteer and full-time, that was not paying our volunteers by the hour. And I think it's time that we do. I've done a little bit of research on what other towns, volunteer towns, pay their employees, and it varies from about minimum wage to $22 an hour. We're pretty lucky, we have a lot of well-trained members, so I think they're worth at the very least $18 an hour for them to give us their time and to leave work and leave birthday parties or Christmas mornings and all those events that are important in life, but they're willing to give it away. And sleep, yes. So I think that is a more than fair thing to offer to all members. I also think it may help bring in some younger folks. Nowadays, it's pretty hard for a lot of younger people to leave work and volunteer and still pay their bills. So if we can supplement their income a little bit, that might help with recruitment and retention. The other big jump would be my yearly stipend. It was made aware by these two guys and a lot of other members that the amount of time that I put in is tremendous, whether it be making, I mean, we had 160 calls this year, I made it to 137 calls. I'm fortunate that I work in town and that my dad was a fire chief as well, and I'm allowed to leave work on a whim. But yeah, we all put a lot of time in. I put a whole lot of time in, whether it's with recruitment and retention, making sure, we have fire trucks for Halloween, that we deliver Santa Claus in the fire truck for Christmas by the Sea. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that I do, that I enjoy doing, but I've found that in the last couple of years, we have so many calls and we have a lot of firefighters that there's a tremendous amount of paperwork and time that I put in, and I'm leaving work a lot to deal with things that are not just a fire call. And I'm finding that I'm spending my own money to make my life a little bit easier outside of the fire department and work, and it's costing me money to volunteer. So in my eyes, looking at some of the other towns and what they pay their chiefs and the amount of calls they have, $15,000 is it's a fair amount of money to compensate, a chief's position in Lakeville. Most of the other towns that are volunteer have about 80 calls or less.
It's not just the time on the call,
It's the paperwork after the calls as well. There's a fair amount of paperwork. Not 100% of it is required, but the state really likes to have all the reports so that they can do all of their logistics, and I'm sure there's a lot of state funding that gets delegated out for the information that we submit to them. So,
And the town administrator might occasionally give you a little burden still.
every once in a while.
So it's, I'm sure it's challenging to sit here and explain why you think you deserve more. So
It's very hard,
But you
yes,
did
yes,
you did a
yeah.
very good job at that. So we're gonna move, unless somebody has some specific questions about that, we're gonna move down the page, and I think these are pretty self-explanatory. FICA and Medicare certainly is. Once again, here's paid family and medical leave. Truck fuel, if anybody has a question about what truck fuel is, we'll really go back to the basics. Training, building and property maintenance. We have 2 fire stations that we maintain, the buildings and the property. Electricity looks pretty minimal in terms of dollars. You'll recall that a couple years ago, we purchased our own solar array, which happens to be located at the center station. So we generate electricity that's credited to the town's account, and then so in the good months, those extra kilowatt hours go into a bank, so that at this time of year, when we don't have as much daylight, we can draw from that bank. But we still have to pay the basic meter charge at these locations. Equipment purchases, I don't know if how much you want me to talk about these. You can run down some of these things.
Equipment purchases went up. That's just due to inflation. I mean, the stuff that we buy annually, it's an increase in cost across the board for pretty much everything: fire gear, SCBA, air bottles, gloves, helmets, all that equipment that we use for fire calls and car accidents. Equipment maintenance, that's like flow testing our air packs, excuse me, other tests and stuff, and other like 4 gas meters and stuff like that. It's just like everything, the price has gone up to have it all maintained.
Truck maintenance, pretty straightforward.
Truck maintenance, truck maintenance has gone up. Let's see, I mean, we've got heating, fuel, and propane. Hopefully we don't have too much cold weather, and hopefully that stays about the same.
That's also gone down because of the heat pump at the beach station.
That's right, yes, those have helped out tremendously. Membership fees are the same, because I think everything that we're doing right now is the same. Office supplies are office supplies. I increased that a little bit because we find we're using more stuff around the station as far as paper and ink, a lot of ink, printing off a lot more paperwork that we have to do.
That's telephone and internet.
Internet as well.
Last year, we
Okay.
switched from, you recall, we had a emergency management drill over there, and we were using the internet, and the DSL was,
We weren't using the internet.
Yeah,
That was the problem.
Well,
Slow.
needless to say, we've installed fiber service into the fire station, and I think we can all say internet's a little better than it used to be.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Like a lot better.
When we stream training stuff, there's no buffering, it's far better. And you can also make phone calls now in the fire station, because that's another big deal, is there's no cell phone service in the station.
But there is now.
But there is now, it works great, it works great, the Wi-Fi is
Yeah.
excellent with all of that, you can call in and out, you can receive messages. Respiratory standard is the same, hose and ladder testing, that's a private company comes, they pressure test all our hose, they load test all our ladders, and the $5,200 is what they quoted me for the year. Emergency reporting, They actually didn't give me a number back, but it continues to go up every year, so I just increased it accordingly. Snow removal,
So-
that's whatever
Yeah,
fire is.
so we have a contractor that plows the snow at the 2 fire stations and then applies sand as needed, or whether we want it or not sometimes. Lawn care and landscaping, we hire a company to mow the grass, weed whack. Whatever else, that's currently out to bid, so that may be subject to change before you see the next version of this. Security system, we have an alarm system at the station, as well as some cameras, so if you want to get on camera,
Want to get on camera?
show up. Please don't come to the fire
Hopefully
station.
We haven't actually needed them, which is good.
Yep, and then our firefighter accident insurance coverage was added, was that last year we added that, or was it 2
The
years
year
ago?
before.
2 years ago, so that if somebody is injured, hurt, or heaven forbid, the other thing, on a fire call, there is coverage. Beyond just workers' compensation. Anyone have some questions for the chief, or his deputy chief, or his assistant chief, or?
Karen does.
I do. First of all, thank you for what you do. Everybody appreciates it, and I know you don't hear that enough. I'll make sure you know it. Donnie, I know you put in a lot of time, much like everybody else, that you are surrounded by down there, and thank you. I don't see anything for technology upgrade. Computers, I'm glad to hear that we can make a phone call down there. Now, that was very frustrating. I don't see anything for communications as far as radios, things of that nature.
Radio seem to be holding up fine. We do grants through the Forest Service.
Yep.
And they usually give us, well, they pay for half of portable radios. So in the last 4 years, I think I've almost replaced all the portable radios in the beach station and the center station.
And what about things like pagers, just anything like that?
Pager,
I'm
yeah,
looking
yeah.
for that.
Pagers as well.
Okay.
That all pretty much falls under equipment purchases.
Yeah.
Is the pagers and the
Okay.
radios and all that.
Okay.
The only other thing that may not, well, we should have enough money in equipment maintenance and purchases is having, radios programmed and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So we are on video down there. I know there was a little hiccup with that monitor or something like that, but is that working properly? Is that enough cameras?
The cameras seem to be fine.
Are you seeing the areas you need to see?
Yeah, we can see the areas that we're concerned with. The biggest thing was one, just seeing who's coming and going through the driveway. Also, if the plow company runs into the building,
Yeah.
we can make somebody responsible for that. And just checking stuff out. And if anybody, has any random claims, like they fell in the parking lot, all the entrances are covered in there. We are still having trouble with the reception on the rest of the system coming back and forth to Seacoast Security, but I believe we're on the schedule for them to look at it again.
Yeah, I saw that the other day.
Okay.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you about is, that doesn't seem like a lot of, for building maintenance, building/property maintenance, $6,000. Are we looking ahead at stuff? Or is there a fund somewhere that I don't know about that you guys have? I mean, let's take into consideration how old the building is.
10 years, 11, I think it's
Yeah.
11 years old, yeah. I mean, I keep it, like these last storms, I keep an eye on the shingles. That's always
Yes.
a big thing, and I don't know if everybody knows, there's some of those companies, like ICO had a huge amount of problems with shingles, but yeah, honestly, all the shingles look fine. I've looked at the siding, I think there's a little bit of like splash up of water, it's getting on the siding, and there's some spots that need to be repainted. Figured we'd have Mr. Berry do some of that maybe this spring or summer when it's dry. But other than that, everything seems to be in a good working order, other than, you know, the garage door gives us trouble every once in a while, but it seems like that's enough money to take care of it.
Is there any residual stuff that you're looking at the beach station in the interim? I know we've had a couple of storms, we've had some damage. Have we been able to recover from that? And if not, is that built into this too?
That is not built into this. I think we spoke yesterday about the fact that I noticed that some shingles had come off from that storm. I didn't notice until a couple days ago that there were some shingles that had blown off.
Okay.
So that, we'll have to see if we can get a quote and see what that's gonna be, but that came up long after I
this.
submitted this,
Okay.
right?
But we still have some time
Okay,
before this is actually submitted and everything, but, okay, as of right now, that's all I have for that, and, you know, the wages are what they are, and we do realize that you can only put in so much time. I'd like to pay you a lot more, I really would, and I think you guys all know that,
yeah,
but, I understand it.
Yeah.
I certainly do. So I got,
I think you hit the high point.
I get it all.
I think so. Good job.
Yeah, the wage increases were really good.
Yeah,
It really is. That's what bothered me for a long time.
all right, good, well, I'm glad you're on board with it. It's, you know, one of those things that I've always loved to volunteer and give.
But it shouldn't
But-
cost you a fortune to do it.
But, right, it's to the point where it shouldn't cost me money, and it's, you know, my position is, not one of the most fun ones, that's for sure.
Well, as the years progress, the requirements of the fire chief are just getting harder and harder and more, so it's just the way the sort of like fire service is headed.
Yeah,
You gotta keep up with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Good to see you guys.
Good. It's good.
Growing with me.
Yep. That's what everyone says. Thank you.
All right, we're back on schedule. He says tongue firmly in cheek. All right, so we're now on to protection other and remainder, which is page 9. Although not too bad. This is a little bit of a catch-all. I'll just explain each one of these very briefly. Streetlights. The town leases a number of streetlights from Central Maine Power that are up on poles. I think we're down to like 6 or 8 or something, not a lot of them. We cut out a number of them a couple of years ago. And we also have the sidewalk lights at the beach, the decorative lights that we we have a meter down there and we have to pay our electric. So the electricity, once again, comes from the solar. Insurances, this is our workers' compensation, our unemployment insurance, the risk pool, which is our liability insurance and building coverage. And then we budget for a deductible in case we have a claim, and we have $1,000 deductible, so we put it in there. We hope we never have to use it, like we hope we never have to use insurance. But we did in the past year, actually. And we're going to probably again here very shortly. Legal services, we have a town attorney that we contract with to provide legal services. We also budget money for what's called conflict counsel, in case our counsel has a conflict, or in case our town attorney is advising the Board of Appeals and the code officer needs an attorney for some appeal. They can't represent both, so we have money's budget for conflict counsel. Emergency management, if anybody wants to be emergency management director, we have a position vacancy. We offer that a small stipend and some supplies money for that. Ambulance service, we talked about this very briefly at the start. You can see a substantial increase in the budget from the current year to the upcoming year. That's still in flux, to say the least, depending on what some of our partnering communities decide to do and what we decide to do. Knox Dispatch, I wish the chief were still here, but he's not. We currently pay to participate through the Knox Regional Communications Center for both fire and EMS dispatching. The fire department, and this is why I wish the chief was still here, is exploring the possibility of moving back to Waldo, which is included in our county tax. When we started paying Knox, we weren't getting good service or any service from Waldo. You couldn't hear in various places in town, and if you can imagine, you're trying to talk on the radio in an emergency situation and dispatch can't hear you, it's less than ideal. And they could hear dispatching from Knox. Waldo has done a number of improvements relatively recently, and the chief has actually been going around to various what used to be dead spots and doing tests with Waldo, so we may be moving back to Waldo. Time will tell on that one. And parking enforcement is a big whopping $50. Used to be its own line because we used to have an employee doing it. It's just for supplies, for warning cards and ticket books. And that was a real quick explanation of protection other than it must be a question. Joan, you have one. I know you've been very quiet in the corner, so.
Soaking it in.
Okay. And I don't mean to pick on anybody.
Pretty soon
It's
he's
just,
gonna start asking all these questions.
that's right.
Does he write a lot of tickets in the run of the year?
Does he? Do you mean,
She, the,
do I?
well, you're the one that.
Well, when we
You're the
look,
lucky child.
when we lost our parking enforcement person, I encouraged the select board to at least appoint somebody to do the job so that if there were a true crisis, we would have a person that could, so, no. Recently haven't written a lot of tickets. We try with most things in Lincolnville with the enforcement aspect, we try the friendly neighborhood approach first of, hey, do you know what you're doing is not what you're really supposed to be doing? And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. Some people need a little more prodding to do the right thing.
We've been unsuccessful in securing anyone who is interested in the job.
I'm not interested.
I was just gonna say, are you interested?
All this time.
To be quite honest, usually the parking challenges are when the ferry service starts charging for parking in the spring. Everybody migrates from the ferry parking lot over to the diagonal spaces. And somebody goes down and puts a little warning card on the people's windshields that say, you're in the 4-hour spot, and you've been here all day. And that, believe it or not, takes care of the bulk of the people once they get that warning that the next time they might get a ticket. Not always. We have had tickets and we have had people pay.
Frank, do you have a question or a comment?
Well, I do. I would just like to speak to the emergency management director. As we have witnessed the latest 2 storms here in this town, it would have been beneficial to have an emergency management director in this town. We haven't had one for quite some time. There's not a lot of demand, but when there's a demand, there's a crucial demand. I feel that we should, in order to attract a person, hopefully the right person, I feel we need to get that number up to 3,500, something like that. And this is a person that needs to work independently, but yet in tandem with our fire chief. And it's enough so that it would be too much to add to the fire chief, and it really shouldn't be the fire chief's responsibility. You gotta get the right person. But I feel that the only way we're gonna do that is to get the stipend up there a little bit so that it's attractive to someone. Once you've got what you need and organized and where we as a town are up to date, it's just carrying it along. unless we have a catastrophe or unless we have an issue. Some of you may not know this, but our school is one of 7 locations as a warming center for Waldo County. There was a time that we had an emergency management director who actually happened to be in the school, and I happened to be in there. There were parents and children in the school, touring the school before the year was to begin for the school. We lost power. We had people in the building. It was almost dark. There were no emergency lights. The generator didn't work because the principal had not had the generator maintained. That's always been a school responsibility. This person can hold whoever's responsible accountable and can track the maintenance, make sure that one of the things that we've been charged with is ready to go. A lot of people don't know our school is a warming facility in a catastrophe. We have a generator so that so the school, it doesn't run the whole school, but it definitely would keep people safe. I'm just getting that out there. I'd like to see that number come up a little bit, and I'd like to see it, I just would like to see it come up so we get somebody in that position. That's my opinion on that. We haven't had one for a while, and this year we needed one. We had the town administrator and the fire chief put in a lot of time during those storms. And there were other things that they needed to take care of as well. Thankfully, there was nobody got hurt, nobody, there was no catastrophic event, but there certainly could have been. We need that person.
That's a good segue to say, when you on the board begin your deliberations, you can add and subtract to this in any way you see fit. And we'll make sure the budget committee is aware of any changes you make. Any other other types of questions? Okay.
Yeah, I do have a question. So when might the town find out if you lose Knox dispatch and go to the Waldo? Is that an ongoing?
That the chief and I have talked about when he's comfortable to come to the board and say, I'm ready, or I believe we're ready. So.
I'm not I'm just curious.
I'd like to think it'd be in the next several months.
Okay, thanks.
Before we finalize this page would be great.
It would be helpful. but-
Yeah. Any other questions? All right.
Okay, turning the page to page 10, Town Office Building. Town Office Building, you're in it. This is the cost associated with the upkeep and maintenance of this building. We have a part-time custodian who we pay, obviously. We have FICA and Medicare, and that elusive paid family medical leave of $16 that will cost to participate. Trash removal, landscaping, security system. We have an alarm system in this building, and as well as smoke and heat detectors and water detector in the basement. And what else did we just add up? Carbon monoxide and, okay. Building maintenance, pretty straightforward. We have heating, cooling, water, wastewater, flooring, fire extinguishers, you name it. We maintain it here in the building. Electricity is our basic cost because electricity itself comes from the solar array. Equipment purchases, such things as shovels, brooms, hoses, vacuum. Whatever goes wrong, we fix or get a new one. Heating fuel, the building is heated with heat pumps. We have or at least the new section's heat pumps. The older section has a small propane boiler in the basement, and then our generator runs on propane. That all comes from heating fuel. Supplies are general cleaning supplies, trash bags, paper products, that type of thing. Telephone, we have 5 phone lines, 1 fax line, and long-distance charges. Website and internet, town maintains a website. We have fiber service here in the building, and we also have our remote meeting capabilities via Zoom. Is the costs are incurred in that line. And snow removal, we hire plowing, sanding here, and shoveling, any type of way they want to remove the snow from the walkways back to the back entrances, and we do the.
Is that a fixed contract?
Yep, we put that out to bid, and we bid, we'll talk a little bit more about this with our highway budget, but highway contractor, we put all our snow removal out as one package. And include the gear and the shoveling and everything else. So. Any questions regarding town office? I ran through that really quick. We didn't even talk about any dollars and cents with any of that. But
Yeah, just a real quick question.
Yeah.
Kern, you mentioned, it'd be nice to see an IT, a line for IT for meetings. Would you want to see it here in the internet Zoom?
If that's where David thinks it should be, I think that's where it should be now that I look at it, but I would just like to see some support so that we don't have to struggle with the, with our connectivity with the town. That's all. And I know we've talked about it before, and years ago we had it, we got away from it, and now I think technology is,
you mean having a person?
yeah, or
Oh,
something.
that'll be a good deliberation.
Well, I don't know how to do it without a person, to be real honest.
Well, I didn't know if you meant the actual technology or you meant the actual operation of the technology.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it is simply involves a technology upgrade or something like that. But I don't want you to have to struggle because.
Thank you.
And for a number of reasons. Number one, it's very frustrating. You've got a lot on your mind and a lot that you need to get to. And number two, we shouldn't have to worry about being able to communicate with the taxpayers.
Right.
We've got that available to us.
Yeah, we, as we know, or maybe we know, the live stream was a kind of a homegrown effort that was established at board direction by one of the board members who no longer even resides in the community. And if I had his knowledge of technology, probably would be simple, but it's not, so.
I think there's always going to be a human element
Yeah.
involved in that, but I think if we've got something that just needs to be refined and or upgraded, I think we should look into that, get it done, and see what the support is gonna look like for us.
The board should probably have a conversation regarding our policy and whatnot that will help drive that.
Any other town office building questions? We'll turn to page 11. Contingency, just that. For the unknown that comes up, in order to not have to necessarily call for a special town meeting. We budgeted $10,000 for contingency. We have for a number of years. You can look back and see the last, 6 or 7 years worth of what we expended out of contingency. Some people say I'm kind of tight with $1, and I like that. Wouldn't spend contingency if we didn't need it. Obviously, if that was 0, we could just, call a special town meeting and get the folks together in 7 or 10 days after the budget committee met and the select board met, but that's not a real efficient way to run a multi-million-dollar organization. And at one point, I used to argue for more than $10,000, but I dropped that request. Okay, any questions on contingency?
So if you had an unexpected expense that was 10,200.
Yep.
You'd have to go through a lot of hoops to get that extra $200, or could you take it from some other GL?
I would beat on the vendor and make him get it under 10,000, then I'd go hat in hand to the select board and say, can I spend this money?
That's the right answer.
There are multiple ways to accomplish the goal usually. depending on what the issue was. It usually isn't one $10,000 item. I mean, if you look back to fiscal year 20, we spent $9,044.96. That was mostly COVID-related stuff. You know, we didn't budget for plexiglass, we didn't budget for masks, we didn't budget for hand sanitizer, we didn't budget for, you know, I didn't know it was coming. And when's the next one coming? We don't know. So, you know, it was a bunch of little things. If it's something of real magnitude, it probably would go to town meeting anyways.
Okay.
But it gives the board some discretion as to where, you know, where and what they can do. And obviously, even within that discretion, the board might say, this is important enough, and it isn't necessarily time critical, that let's ask the people if we can spend the money on this or whatever, so. It's all situation dependent.
Makes sense, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other contingencies?
Yeah, well, I know 10,000 has been decided upon and used for a long time, but costs are rising. And needs seem to arise, and we have storms, things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if we might want to start to consider just bumping it up a little bit, regardless of how and if it will be used, just because the cost of things.
Yeah.
are rising.
That would be a policy decision for the board.
That we will have a chance to discuss.
And I think if our track record, if we were bumping up against $10,000 every year, I might be more enthusiastic about saying, can or should that be more? But we don't seem to be, and I don't know if that's just the luck of the draw, or we do a good job budgeting, or
I'm sure that's it.
I'd like to think that was the reason that we, so I won't fight you on it, Mike, if you want to die on that hill, but
Sounds like a great hill to die on.
yeah.
It's always,
Any hill is good.
it's fun for one of the more simple lines of the entire budget. It always is such a great source of conversation.
People are fired up about it too.
Yeah. Well, it's a philosophy. Some places don't budget a contingency and they just make do, however they do it. And a number of places budget substantially more than we do. In, communities our size or smaller, and you pick your own number, I guess. That's the way to say it. Any more contingency type questions? Okay, CEO, code enforcement officer. We employ a part-time code enforcement officer who also is our local plumbing inspector, our building inspector, and a health officer, and an addressing officer, or signs addresses. We pay that individual a wage. Here we go, part-time wages. We used to budget for a alternate CEO. This year, the select board hired themselves a public facilities director who just walked in, who you're gonna meet here in the next two more things down. He came to us with the certifications for plumbing inspector and code officer, so they appointed him as an alternate. Woohoo, so we're not budgeting any money for that. FICA and Medicare paid family leave, you're probably tired of hearing me talk about that. We do send or offer some training to the code enforcement officer to maintain his certifications, budget for professional development, some membership money, some supplies and publications, which is building permit forms, training manuals, subdivision books, and that type of thing. Equipment purchases, small amount of money in case something breaks in the tape measure world or the pop level world, so he can do his job. And water monitoring, in case there's some question about some less than desirable monitoring for water, we can take some tests or check. So, anybody have any questions about code enforcement? We don't make the poor code enforcement officer come to this meeting because I just talked over his thing in 3 minutes or less. Assessing, which is page 13. The Board of Assessors hires an assessor's agent to do the bulk of the work, or behind the scenes work in tracking deeds and sales and splits and preparing the commitment book. That's a contracted position. The request from the contractor is for $42,000 for the upcoming year. We also provide remote access software to that individual so he can work from elsewhere if he needs to, and he does for a period of the year. This is the last year that he will be doing the work for the town of Lincolnville. He's looking to retire. We're the last town that he's going to be working for and doing commitments. And next year, this will be the company, we'll have a different contract, most likely with the company that is doing our revaluation for us. Happy to answer some questions.
Do we have a tentative number from that company, how much it's gonna be?
For a year from now, or?
Okay.
Yeah, this is gonna take, this request
This
takes us through to June of next year, and they're gonna start their work, that we have the contract for $215,000 for the reval, but then there'll be a separate assessor's agent contract offered, and I don't know if we have a number on that as yet. Anyone in there? Okay, turn the page to page 14. Which is our Public Works, Highways, and Bridges. Matt, welcome.
Thank you.
So for anybody that doesn't know, this is Matt Dean. Matt is our, well, you're not new anymore, you've been here how long?
3 months.
3 months. Public Facilities Director, which encompasses a lot of the duties previously done by the road commissioner and the harbor master, and some on the Recreation Commission. It's a little bit of a catch-all. It's not any one of those, but it's all the pieces of all of those. Matt is under that, we talked about earlier, administration and finance, because he's primarily a town office employee, but he's coordinating all these various contractors around town. So when we get to Public Works, Highways, and Bridges, on page 14, again, we have part-time wages. We do hire some, I don't want to call them day laborers, but almost, to work for the town. We're getting more and more away from actually hiring employees to do this, and more hiring individuals that act as independent contractors. But we do budget a little bit of money for part-time wages if necessary. Big ticket items, machinery and materials. So for machinery, we do things such as grade our gravel roads at least once a year, if not twice, if not 3 times, depending on how quickly they deteriorate with weather and materials. Our shoulder box and broom, when we pave a road, we apply shoulder material to the side of the road to ease the transition from the pavement down to what was there for earth before. The shoulder box applies the material, and then the broom sweeps the road off to make sure it's clean. York rake or Harley rake for minor road things. If we have to clean up a gravel road, we may bring in somebody with a smaller tractor to just shape it back up. Hay mulcher for erosion control. Erosion control is a big issue. You may see them shooting hay off from the side of the road. Goes to a chopper and shoots it out to minimize erosion. Trucking's pretty straightforward. We do truck materials. We do not have any crew of our own besides Matt. He's not the crew, he's the leader. So we contract out for trucking of materials to us or to a job site. Same, we contract out for excavators to do ditching or culvert replacements in the town ways. Roadside mowing, we mowed the sides of roads about the 1st of July, or the first couple weeks of July, so that you can actually see when you pull out in the intersections. Grass down, that's again all contracted. Patch truck is if we need to patch potholes or whatever around town, we can hire somebody's truck to go around with patch. Tree and brush removal and trimming, this is a ongoing, I don't want to say headache, but nightmare for us at times. Believe it or not, trees and brush keep growing every day, maybe not this time of year, and it doesn't matter how quickly we cut back trees and brush, there seems to be more. And it keeps coming. So we remove dead vegetation, tree branches, whatever. We bring in a contractor to do that work for us. Sidewalk and beach parking lot sweeping. Pretty straightforward. We sweep the beach parking lot and the sidewalks at the beach in the spring, get them ready for crosswalk painting and restriping, and our stop lines. A couple of years, well, quite a few years ago now, we were having some safety concerns at stop signs that people weren't seeing. We put up stop signs ahead. We painted some, the white stop bars in the road, so it would be a visual clue for a driver to pay attention and stop here. And I think it's helped in certain circumstances. So that's kind of what we do with machinery, materials, pretty straightforward. Gravel, we do have a little over 8 miles of gravel roads left. That does times require us to bring material in. Also when we repave the road and we do that shoulder work, we're putting down gravel to make the transition. 2-inch stone, we're not looking to purchase quite as much this year. We've got a little bit left in the stockpile next door. We were using that material to kind of firm up some of our gravel roads in the springtime when a number of those 8 miles get pretty soft. I think is a fair way to put it. Reclaim and cold patch, everybody knows what cold patch is. Reclaim is we purchase recycled asphalt to put down in some areas that have washed before or are prone to washing. It holds a little better, and actually when the sun gets on it, because it still has the asphalt content, it doesn't get really soft, but it gets soft enough that it may bind up a little bit, and it's helpful. It's a little better than gravel in terms of staying power. Culverts and riprap, pretty straightforward. We have a lot of culverts, to say the least, around town. We replace those on an as-needed basis. And riprap is the stone that we put on the ends to prevent erosion from washing culverts out. We're trying. Guardrail and other miscellaneous supplies. We have a couple of locations that have guardrail in town. Sometimes that gets struck by cars or other things, and we may need to do some replacement. Crack sealing is money so that as a preventative maintenance measure, buy us a little bit more time, fill the cracks in the road, keep the water from penetrating into the road, try to get the water off the road, because water is the primary cause of deterioration of roadways. And then erosion control materials, hay, again, that we put down with a hay mulcher or a jute mat is a fabric that's rolled out, just deteriorates over time.
So you purchase hay elsewhere from other sources, or do you make all your own hay?
We purchase hay. We don't have a field that we cut or anything like
So the
that.
price of hay goes up substantially, I heard, due to excessive precipitation. It makes hay more difficult to harvest. So has that been accounted for here?
I'm gonna hope for a good hay season. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. No, the hay that we use, I wouldn't say would be prime hay.
Right.
It wouldn't necessarily be something you would feed an animal.
It's mulch hay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's-
Mulch hay.
Yeah.
There's generally always a decent market for mulch hay.
So hopefully that doesn't change a whole lot. If it does, maybe we buy a little less and put a little less out and still meet the best management practices for erosion control. Miscellaneous and storm expenses. We budgeted $10,000. I guarantee you that with this most recent storms, $10,000 is not enough. But you can't budget for every circumstance. In all likelihood, I don't mean to let the cat out of the bag, but at the next select board meeting in 13 days, they're going to get a request for a special town meeting to appropriate some monies from unassigned fund balance so that we can do some storm repairs for the storms that we had December 18th, January 10th, January 13th. In the hopes that we will at some point be reimbursed at least a large portion of that from disaster declarations. But we had the October 2021 storm, was it 2021? And it took us 2 years to get reimbursed for that. And
In lieu of that information.
Yep.
Should that line be more? I know it's a crapshoot. I know
right.
it is, but should it be though?
Unfortunately, you can't budget for a lot of unknowns. And I think it's, if you could put any number, we could put 0 in there if you wanted to, and up contingency by 10,000, I think the past has proven out, unless we get something extraordinary, we can address it. And if we get something extraordinary, like the storms we've had, we have other monies that have been reserved that we just need to take out of the right pocket and put in the left so we can actually expend it. And I think
The way I was looking at that is, you're gonna have, so let's say we have a catastrophic event, you have immediate need, and then you have come back around.
Yep.
And clean up. So I'm wondering if so this number right here to me is immediate need.
Yep.
Get people there, get you opened up, or whatever you wanna call it, and then you're gonna come back around and.
Yeah.
And we'll call it beautify, but it isn't, it's finished cleanup.
right.
And that would be that number would be, are we gonna be able to recoup this? Okay, I'll take that out of the right pocket, put it to the left, that type of thing. So I'm just wondering if that should be a little bit more.
It could be whatever the board wishes, but I think that this is a reasonable first crack at it.
Yeah.
And I don't have any, besides my gut instincts, I don't have anything to base that on. Besides, you look back 2 years ago, we spent $919 out of that account. This most recent series of storms, we're probably in excess of 6 figures of damage. Not probably, we are.
Yeah.
How are we gonna pay for that? Some of it will be insurance, some of it will be us, and hopefully there'll be the disaster declaration, so we'll get 95% of that back. Trash removal at the parks. We have trash removal that we provide at Breezemere Park and Duck Trap and the beach. Sand salt building maintenance. We have a large building next door that we store sand and salt in for use in the winter, and a little bit of money to help maintain that building. Electricity for there, we have the basic charges for the meter over there. Street and work zone safety signs. Unfortunately, people steal street signs for whatever reason, and we replace them about as quickly as they steal them if we can, if we're aware of them. People run over stop signs and whatnot. This is just some money to take care of that. And then we have some work zone safety signs, cones, barricades, if we need to purchase any new or additional. Our paving program is We have a road surface maintenance plan. The upcoming plan for FY '25 is currently budgeted for Green Acre and the paved portions of Wentworth, Maiden Cliff Road, and South Cobbtown roads. And then we do a little bit of patchwork on culverts and whatnot. For anybody that says, we still have FY '24's work left to do for paving. That's why if you look at what's expended, we haven't expended much money. We expended $7,000. That was basically some patchwork. We're doing Tuckerbrook Road and the paved portion of Maslin Road in the spring. So, and then our winter road maintenance. We have a road contract for plowing and sanding of our roads. 54 miles, $440,000. This is the second year of a 7-year contract. Beach parking lot monies are included here. We plow at the beach parking lot. Winter sand, we supply the sand and the salt to the contractor for their application, gets stored in our sand salt building in the fall. Well, salt we order as needed basis, but. And I didn't let Matt say a thing. He's okay with that. I told him that this year it would be probably 99% me talking, and then next year it would be 98% of me talking and 2% him. And the third year it'd be 97% me talking and 3% him, and after that you'll be on your own. Anybody have some questions about public works, highways, and bridges? Sam?
So I just have a question. The snow removal contract
Yep.
for here per year is $7,100, and for the beach parking lot, it's $3,600. And maybe I'm wrong. Is the beach parking lot quite a bit larger area than?
It is. We have different specifications for the two locations. The beach parking lot, they primarily have to clean out when the storm is over. Here, we require them to keep it open while we're open. So they're through here more frequently.
Oh, I see, yeah.
In addition, here, there's the shoveling crew, and very few people like to shovel snow. And there's a fair amount of hand shoveling done here with the walkway and the little walkway over the post office and out the back, the front steps.
Generator.
And, yeah, the generator and the heat pumps to make sure they're clear. And so that drives up the town office cost, how we specify it. You're welcome. That's a good question. That's a good catch. Nobody's asked that in 20 years.
I paid $25 to have my driveway plowed, but yeah, for shot. But,
Yep.
So I snowed 3 times this year, thankfully.
Yeah, that's a good point. We pay by the season.
Yeah, I was asking about that.
We, you know, it's a risk reward. If it snows every day, at the beach parking lot, they're getting paid $3,612. If it doesn't snow at all, they're getting paid $3,612.
Yeah.
One of them things. And that's part of the reason why the contractors like a certain number of years versus a 1-year contract. Because if you average it out, you're gonna get the same number of plowable events over time. And they know how many that is, and they know how many times they're gonna be out sanding, and if they lose a little this year, they make a little next year. If they make a lot this year, they may lose a lot you know. It's not a business I'd like to be in. They also like to be able to take our extended contract and go to their favorite banker and say, can I borrow money to go buy trucks? And the favorite banker says, well, you only have a 1-year contract. We're not gonna do that, but if you have a longer term, we might finance them over a period of time. All right, if there's No other questions on highways and bridges. We'll turn the page and do Public Works Transfer Station. And I'm gonna look up at the clock. Oh, we're gaining. This one, mentioned in the opening remarks, we've just budgeted the same amount of this year as we had last year because nobody's given me a budget. Not for lack of asking. That may be changing before you see it again, Budget Committee or Select Board. Public Works Harbor is on page 16. Yours truly, me, is the harbor master. Matt is the deputy harbor master. I get all the credit, he gets all the work. So we have a number of things, primarily at the harbor. We have a municipal pier, which is directly adjacent to the ferry slip. That pier has 5 floats off from it in the better boating season. We have 3 in the water now and 5 in the summer. We have 3 inclines down to that. Also have 2 hoists or davits, 1 on each corner for use by trained individuals that we charge them a fee for. So the first line in here is the pier winch, which is those davits. That's if something breaks, those are hydraulically operated. And they do require some maintenance. Pier maintenance repair is a little more detailed out. We contract out labor primarily to Dark Harbor Boatyard from Acre Island. They do float maintenance and storage for us. Materials, if anything breaks, town guest and float mooring items. We have 3 town guest moorings that are available for use, as well as our floats. And if something breaks or needs repaired, we fix it. Electrical repairs, we have lights there. We have the motors for the hydraulics. What else do we have down there electrically?
Washdown pump.
We have the washdown pump. We have a live streaming camera, so you can watch the harbor to your heart's content now if you wish. All runs on electricity, and it's an exposed location, so we end up with electrical repairs, unfortunately. Storm damage avoidance and repairs. If we have a known event coming, there are times when we may lift the inclines off the floats so that they don't get damaged. Sometimes we let them ride it out, depending on whether we can get somebody there or not. And if something breaks, we get it fixed. Mowing and snow removal. We've got a little bit of grass down next to the harbor user parking areas, and we used to have some grass next to the launching ramp. We no longer have that there. And snow removal, if it snows, we have snow removed. That is a separate contractor for that snow removal. Town guests and float mooring inspections. We have our 3 moorings inspected on an annual basis to see that they're safe for users. That costs us money for each inspection, and then if we need to fix it, we usually have the lines up above. And internet for the webcam broadcast that you can watch, but we have to have an internet connection, and there's the money. Pier electricity, we have a meter at the beach for the usage, but we don't have electricity charges because of the solar. Memberships and training is the Maine Harbor Masters Association and their annual conference, which Matt is going to in a couple weeks so that he can be a certified harbor master. He does come to us with a lot of experience in harbors and waters because he was a career Coast Guard, safe to say, retiree from the Coast Guard. So that's why he's going to be a great deputy harbor master, probably better than the harbor master. Wave break survey. We installed a stone wave break here, probably maybe a dozen or 15 years ago. One of the requirements of our environmental permitting was that we survey the beach to the south of it and to the north of it on an annual basis to make sure that that breakwater isn't causing erosion or accretion of soils. And it hasn't moved much in the number of years we've been monitoring it, but part of our permitting, so we did it. Annual pier inspection would be for visual inspection of the pier elements, the gangways, floats, wood, connections, trash removal at the pier. We have a, well, right now we have a dumpster at the pier during the winter. And in the summer, we put just a trash can there, and then that gets picked up by our contractor on a daily basis in the summer. But the contractor doesn't work in the winter, so we put a dumpster down there. And then there's our little work plan for the upcoming year at the bottom of the page, just in case somebody's interested in what we're doing and when we're doing it. That's a real basic work plan, but work plan nonetheless. Anybody have questions regarding harbor, public works?
Just a quick one regarding trash removal. So I know the harbor committee had submitted an updated trash facility layout contingent upon the bait bin proposal that they put forth going through. Does this accommodate that?
This does not include monies to build anything off that pier. This includes,
Or to put trash
I mean,
receptacles where bins were?
we put a trash receptacle that's smaller than that desk on the pier in the summer when there's bait boxes, and if we can't accommodate that on that 40 by 80 pier,
Okay.
I'm of the opinion that to build an addition off the side of the pier is a future nightmare. We're about to commence with the repair of the addition that was put on to put the 2 inclines down that got storm damaged and now tips. And it's like anything you add on to, it's never as good as if you built it there to begin with,
Yep, all right.
in my opinion. That being said, if you want to add something, tell us, we'll add money somewhere and build it.
So the only thing that I have a question on is float condition and
Yep.
which one's next up.
We,
And what I mean by that is up for replacement.
Yep.
Because we were trying to keep ahead of that. And
Yep.
we probably caught up with it.
we have, as I said earlier, we have 5 floats. 4 of them are new in the last, I did this for something not long ago.
6 or 7 years.
6 or, Kayla said 6
It's
or
been
7
about
years.
the same time I've been here, so.
Yeah.
Since 17.
And the 5th float was in satisfactory conditions, so we didn't ever look to replace it because we were maintaining it.
Yeah.
And I think it's still in more than serviceable condition.
Okay.
But one of the things the new public facilities director is working on in his spare time, when we're not doing storm stuff and everything else, is we are creating that inventory of what we have, whether it be roofs on every building and the size of those and age and condition, so that we can
Okay.
have a long-range plan for all of these things and not end up with, $500,000 worth of expenses one year and 30,000 the next, kind of doing like we did with our road plan.
I didn't know if we would start to get to that or not, and I know when we replaced a couple of them, it was an emergency because they had to be taken out. I would assume, how many do we have out of service right now? They're
2. We take
But they're over
the
what,
pool,
Dark
the
Harbor?
pool
Yes.
and Dark Harbor,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. So we still got 3 in there.
Yeah, and the newer design that we went with the floats has a lot less wood in the water. As you can imagine, wood in the water doesn't always, accelerates the deterioration of them. So better to Not to say what we had before was bad, it was just
No,
different,
it's-
but it got to the point where it was done.
Yeah. All right, that's all I've got.
Yep. Other harbor questions? Okay. Woo-hoo.
You haven't said a word. What the heck?
Instead of snacks.
I don't know if you're big enough.
So recreation was supposed to be next, and we don't know who from the Recreation Commission was coming, so nobody's here. So I'm gonna do that along with Public Works Other, which is page 17. And if we stay focused, we're going to finish on time. That being said, if you've got questions, feel free to ask. So Public Works Other is page 17. Inland Harbor Master. We currently do not have an inland harbor master. Our inland harbor master resigned. We've budgeted for an inland harbor master for the coming year, and if we can find somebody, we're going to employ them. That is somebody that does harbor master duties on our inland lakes and ponds, assists in enforcement of state law and our jet ski bans on various inland waterways. Breezemere Park maintenance. Breezemere Park is down here at Norton Pond. We pay an individual a very small stipend to mow the grass there. We have monies in there for emergency dock removal if something is necessary. We were having those docks removed by a volunteer at no cost a couple of years ago. That volunteer no longer does that. And we budgeted emergency dock removal because if we needed to pull those out for some emergency, he wasn't always available as a volunteer because he was working his own emergency hauling boats. So anyhow, that's throwback. Porta potty, we have a porta potty at Breezemere Park year round that we contract for maintenance of. General park maintenance, we have an example out here. We've got a sign that we have a number of sandwich boards, signs that one's in two pieces now because it broke away. Just things that pop up that need maintenance. And float launch and retrieval. As I said, we used to have a contractor or a person that hauled boats, did it to us for free. We now have had the last couple of years, company that leases space for us for float storage, haul and launch our boat, our floats. So we budget some money for that. Lincolnville Beach maintenance. We have porta potties at the beach year round. Beach cleaning contract. We hire an individual who in the spring and the fall does a beach walk every morning, every other day in the spring and the fall, and every day in the summer, picks up trash, empties the 5 or 6 trash receptacles that we have at the beach and puts the trash from those in the dumpster, and they get a grand total of $25 a day. Don't tick them off. Spring and storm cleanup, that obviously isn't enough for storm cleanup, but we oftentimes clean up the Lincolnville Beach in the spring of drifty type wood and seaweed and whatever else to try to make it, a little more beach-like and acceptable to people. And beach cleaning supplies is primarily trash bags and that type of thing. Veterans Park maintenance, is Rosie gonna talk about that tomorrow?
Rosie's got that tomorrow, yeah.
Rosie's gonna talk about
We
that
didn't want him to
tomorrow.
have to come 2 nights.
Okay, so we're gonna skip that one, but that's the cost associated with maintaining the Veterans Park, and since that's up substantially, I'm gonna let him talk about that tomorrow. Septic disposal contract, we're required by state statute to provide a septic disposal area or a contract with a licensed disposer. Septic is the stuff that gets pumped out of septic tanks. We choose to contract. I can guarantee you that we cannot have our own disposal field at that cost. nor do we want one, because if you've ever heard of PFAS or any of that stuff, this does not mean that the town pays for the pumping of your septic tank. It just means if you have to have your septic tank pumped, they guarantee that they will take it from the town of Lincolnville. But you're not required to use that contractor. Athletic fields, we talked very briefly again about this at the start of the budget message. Our contracted maintenance, we've taken a stab in the last 2 days about mowing and string trimming of the ball fields, because that's coming to us from the school. School used to do it. We're going to take over that responsibility. The aerate, fertilize, weed control, infield prep, we contract that out with sports fields. Fence repair is, to back up a little bit, the select board appointed a athletic infrastructure committee, is that the name of it? Something like that, that examined our athletic facilities and made a comprehensive list of what we had, what was wrong with what we had, what could wait to be fixed, what should be fixed right now, and other recommendations for the upkeep and maintenance. The town taking over the mowing came back up with that one. Fence repair certainly came back up, and shaping the driveway came back up. So those monies are included here. Marking paint is to mark the ball field lines. Porta potty, we put a porta potty over there in the summer season, or spring and summer and early fall season. Polycap for the baseball fence, it goes around the top, and aluminum benches for the soccer field. I know I'm burning through this pretty quick, but I'm trying to keep us on schedule. Beach, Duck Trap Beach, we put a porta potty at Duck Trap in the summer. Penobscot Park, once again, we have porta potty there. Landscape services, we get the grass, it was a little over 4 acres there. So we do vegetation control and trying to keep back brush. We mow the fields. We do a spring and fall cleanup. We grade the parking lot. Some money in there for signage and maintenance supplies and repairs for things that break. We have 3 grills there, 3 picnic tables there, 3 picnic table enclosures or shelters, 2 benches. It's a great place to go, and it's quiet, and not many people know about it. So please feel free to enjoy. Don't take people. Don't tell your friends from away. We did Penobscot Park. Solar array. We have, as I've talked about, our electricity that we get from a solar array. We contract with Revision Energy at their bronze level service plan to do maintenance to that facility and make sure it's working as it's supposed to be. We pay for that, obviously.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Is Freesmere where the gazebo is?
Yes.
So does that get painted?
That actually, this past summer, we re-roofed the gazebo. And we commenced with the staining of the facility, but it's not complete. The weather caught us at the end of the year, so the deck didn't get done and the steps. We actually had a couple of steps there. Are those replaced, or
Not yet.
they're in the process of being replaced?
So it's just under general maintenance.
Yeah. That was a separate under capital improvement, but we'll talk about Thursday night. Last year, we budgeted for there.
Okay.
So most of what you'll talk about tonight and for the bulk of Thursday, unless it's small, relatively small cost, are upkeep and maintenance of what we already have. Very little upgrades or major improvements. But those are under our capital budget that we'll talk about on Thursday. Yep. And that concludes all we wanted to get through tonight, besides any more questions you have.
Did, what's
Steve?
the proposed to be carried forward, McGonagall Dam?
Yeah, oh, at the bottom of this page, that's a good point. I don't know if we've talked about, if we've had any others yet or not. But at the bottom of this page, you'll see a little bold spot says proposed to be carried forward from FY '24 to FY '25 approximate. And then it says, well, this one's McGonagall Dams, $40,340. And we'll see, there's a couple others these you'll probably see tomorrow, like Conservation Commission and whatever. Those are monies, in order, a capital project that isn't yet completed, we can, by town charter, we can carry that money forward. So if we contract to build a new building and we start in one fiscal year and we have all the money, but the project isn't completed, we can just carry forward the money that's remaining. It doesn't just go back into the unassigned fund balance. For non-capital projects, if we're going to carry money that's already been appropriated forward, we have to ask for voter approval. So one of the early articles in the town meeting warrant will say, do you want to carry forward McGonagall Dam money, Conservation Commission, dog fees? I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but go look at last year's town meeting warrant, you'll see them. McGonagall Dams, the town of Lincolnville, the two dams, the east and the west dam of McGonagall Lake, are owned by the town of Camden. Those impound the waters that create the bulk of McGonagall Lake and a large portion of Norton Pond. By long-standing agreement, the town of Lincolnville and the town of Camden would partner on the upkeep and maintenance of the east and west dams. Town of Camden would pay 2/3 the cost, and the town of Lincolnville paid 1/3. There was a goal long ago to get a certain amount of money in the reserves in case something happened to those that required a large expenditure of money. Several years ago, the board of Lincolnville wanted some more information from the town of Camden. It wasn't real forthcoming. We used to have a McGonagall Dams committee that had both members, or had membership from Lincolnville, that the Lincolnville Select Board appointed, and membership that the Camden Select Board appointed. They'd get together, they'd hire somebody to do inspection of the dams, which came back with a report to say, we think this ought to be done in the coming year, and the cost would be X number of dollars. They also had a dam control agent that was responsible for opening and closing the gates on the dams to regulate the water level. The McGonagall Dams Committee didn't meet, and ultimately, the select board here tried to meet with the Camden Select Board, wasn't successful took a couple years before we got a meeting. And we stopped paying our portion of the bill because the committee wasn't meeting and they weren't making requests, and there wasn't a whole lot of communication, and the money remains in that account.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just have one question, and maybe you can't answer this because there's no representation here from the Recreation Committee
I can answer it.
or Commission or whatever. The individual mowing at Reese Park,
Yep.
is that number in there because we're just assuming he's going to be able to do it? Or have we confirmed, and you know why I'm asking this?
Yeah.
I just wonder how much longer he's gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I know he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart, and it gets him outside and moving around and everything, but I'm wondering how much longer he's gonna be able to do it.
I have not recently confirmed that with him.
Okay. I mean, I want it, if he wants to do it, I want him to.
But do we need a backup plan? Is that your thinking?
Yeah.
Contingency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think, yeah, oh, okay.
I was quick with that, wasn't I?
We're gonna go back and add to that.
That's a little clip, David.
No, I'm serious.
We didn't even mention it on our mowing bid.
No,
Yeah.
because we
You
don't.
know, it would just be something to consider. Just
You didn't think of that, did you?
I really would like to see you do it the next
He's been in.
5-6 years, I just don't think that's gonna be possible, you know? Okay, that's all I got.
I have something else I need to converse with that individual, so I'll ask him that question.
He is still one of the top people that show up to all the fire calls too.
He is.
Yeah.
He is still, and I don't know how many years he's been in the fire department, but I was a kid,
50.
and I'm old
Plus.
as dirt.
Yeah.
You gonna say something now?
So, the remaining budget pages, we're gonna continue on Thursday night. And obviously, everybody's welcome back. Certainly, if you have, we went through a lot in a short period of time tonight. And as you get, and you didn't get it in advance, so as you get a chance to look and you digest, by all means, if you have questions, ask. That's the primary thing I want to get across, and I think you all know that because I've said it several times. Because this is the biggest policy document the town is going to adopt. Where and how you spend your money. And it's, a little bit of it's my money, and a little bit it's everybody else's here, but you add up everybody in town, it's everybody's money. We want to do what the people want us to do.
Yeah.
And not only that, what we're required to do, so.
Yeah, when it comes up over the year in the select board meetings and people come with the bright new shiny thing during the year, we quite literally have our marching orders that the people have told us are important projects, so this is the primary directive for the Board of Selectmen to act on throughout the year.
If there's nothing else.
Anything else from the board? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.